Hello! Have you ever wondered why there are so many countries ready to organize the largest sporting events, even though these events are considered unprofitable by nature? My name is Christian Zawadzki and I would like to invite you to the second episode of the series Scientifically about Finance in Sports. Here we go! From the first episode, it's been already known that how to recognize the largest sporting events. This time, let's consider their economic impact on the horse. The starting point in this regard is the division of effects into short and long-term ones. Although estimating the impact in a shorter period is simpler, it is easier to determine the effect of the event. This approach often distorts the picture of the impact. For this reason, the main research emphasis is laid on the assessment of the long-term effects, better known as a heritage or a legacy. Long-term effects are particularly desired by organizers of sporting events since they lead to a sustainable development of the place where the event is held. The need for a long-term vision of changes resulting from the organization of sporting events is emphasized by the sports federations themselves. For example, the IOC in the Olympic Charter indicates as one of the elements of its mission to promote the positive legacy of the Olympic Games for the host cities and countries. Since 1984, when initially saw no interested city applied to host the Summer Olympics, why? More on this in a moment. There has never happened that the number of potential candidates was less than 2. Now that we know that the basis for economic impact research should be the legacy of mega sporting events, let's take a closer look at how the process of assessing these long-term effects works in practice. One of the researchers promoting a holistic approach to the analysis of long-term effects is Preuss, the originator of the so-called legacy cube. Since the impact assessment undertaken is usually based on planned positive and measurable tangible effects, Preuss proposes that unplanned negative and non-measurable intangible effects be additionally taken into account. Thanks to this, instead of one combination, planned, positive and tangible, we obtain 8 combinations represented by 8 smaller subcubes, which make up the legacy cube. Why should the legacy cube be a starting point for considering potential economic effects? Please know that overwhelming majority of official reports on assessing the impact of a sporting event refer to the issue of the legacy selectively, relying only on one cube, the most appropriate from the policymaker's point of view. Public opinion is usually widely informed about positive, planned and easy to measure variants. This is a significant shortcoming that undermines the credibility of published estimates. However, it is hard to expect that the studies prepared on behalf of sports federations will take into account the negative and difficult to predict effects of sporting events, which would demotivate potential hosts from applying to organize these events in the future. At the stage of applying for the exclusive right to organize an event, any reports of possible threats are perceived as a bad will, but no one has any doubt that such negative effects occur. When discussing this issue, we must not forget to mention the discrepancies appearing between the studies before and after the event. The results of independent research carried out by representatives of scientific institutions clearly indicate a tendency to exaggerate the benefits and marginalize the costs of mega sporting events before the event. The scale of the discrepancies can be significant. The benefits predicted before the event may be overestimated by up to 10 times compared to the actual measurements after the event. This is problematic because a large part of thematic studies are based on predictions and not on the actual facts. Awareness of the occurrence of negative effects does not mean that positive effects of events do not occur at all. The economic impact of a sporting event is primarily due to the large amount of funding injected into the organizer's economy. At the same time, it is necessary to assume that without the organization of a sporting event, this financial flow would not come from various sources, from sponsors, organizers, tourists, representatives of the media, and in particular from public sources in the form of state and local government budget resources. Two basic reasons for injecting additional funds in the host economy are indicated. The first one results from the execution of far-reaching infrastructural projects, while the second is connected with the inflow of tourists and the money they spend during their stay. When a given place is designated as a venue to host a mega sporting event, this means an increase in autonomous expenditure by the value of the A and contributes to increased income. The primary expenditure triggers a subsequent one, smaller than the previous one by an amount which depends on the marginal propensity to consume. This one in turn causes another, reduced by the same percentage. Figure shows that the secondary effect is reduced as time goes by, so that after n cycles, already in the after-event phase, it disappears completely. This explains why the economic effect of the event is subject to temporal constraints. Despite the growing interest in the organization of mega sporting events and consequently the increasing need for techniques to measure their economic impact on the host, there is no universally applicable method that could in practice be used for such an assessment. Traditionally, they include input-output analysis, computable general equilibrium models, cost-benefit analysis. In addition to those mentioned, a quite common practice is to use econometric modeling, the essence of which is to build a model explaining the mechanism of the changes that take place in the investigated segment of reality. A practice frequently used in the world literature is to identify the economic effect of the event with the financial result, that is, with the benefits generated and costs incurred. This is a disputable approach because estimating the impact exclusively on the basis of financial calculations does not permit the inclusion of the much wider spectrum of the economic legacy. The impact on GDP, changes occurring in the labor market, a change in the way that a given area is perceived by foreign investors, etc. Therefore, a distinction should be made between a narrow research approach based on the analysis of interactions of a financial nature and a more broadly based approach taking into account the economic legacy. After all, the event may generate a financial loss, but at the same time provide a boost to economic development and consequently contribute to a positive legacy. The reverse relationship is very rare, since there are few events that end in a profit. In this regard, the Summer Olympics in Los Angeles are cited most often. Rose takes the view that nobody rational should think that direct revenues generated by mega sporting events cover the costs incurred to stage these events. This stems inter alia from the increasingly high cost of providing security during an event following the terrorist attack of 11 September. At the 2004 Summer Olympics, an additional $1.75 billion was spent in Athens alone on participant security, 6 times more than 4 years earlier in Sydney. Since from a scientific point of view there are no clear positive economic effects of organizing mega sporting events, and certainly the organization of these events does not contribute to the creation of net benefits in the strictly financial sense, the question naturally arises as to who makes money from it and why are there so many candidates willing to organize the games by means of public money. The answer to the first question is relatively simple. Sports organizations such as the IOC or FIFA earn more and more profits from the sale of the television rights and from sponsors and even the host cities or countries themselves. The answer to the second question, however, may be related to the occurrence of a number of effects that are difficult to measure, including social ones, such as a sense of happiness or a sense of pride. However, these effects are intangibles, but this is a topic for another episode. Thank you for watching this second episode. Leave a comment and send your questions. See you soon!